What's good, Green Knight Gamers, and welcome to this week's special episode of Green Knight Gaming. I'm your host, Dennis.
And I'm Jamar.
This week we will be talking about movies based off of video games. There's a lot of them. If you want to suggest what we talk about in our next special episode, join our Discord server. This week we will be talking about our favorite games based on movies and TV. If you think about it, there's actually a lot of games based on movies, from The Godfather to Ice Age, everything in between. So my first game I'm going to be talking about is Mad Max. It was a pretty big game, Mad Max series. It has like a huge world for everything, really. It's kind of based around driving, so you would move around this kind of dystopian environment. It's an open world, and there's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of unlockables. It's like highly customizable. You can like unlock different cars. You can bring them back and like add stuff to them, like a ram or a harpoon. And overall, it has a pretty interesting story. There's a lot of interesting characters, and it at certain times it feels like it might kind of lag off because there's a lot of collectibles and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but after a while, like the story kind of is enough to keep bringing you back.
You do catch yourself getting thrown off a lot during certain side missions, like Dennis said.
Yeah.
But overall, the game's really good. And for my next game we're going to talk about is Over the Hedge. If you haven't heard of Over the Hedge movie, well, there was an actual game of it. And with this wacky puzzle-solving comedy of the game, Over the Hedge was definitely in its own class. You could play as RJ the raccoon, Vern the turtle, or Hammy the squirrel. And you had mini games like racing little cars, and you went through the entire movie in just a really crazy way. Like, they all had their own individual weapons and power-ups, and you would go up against like lawn gnomes and all that. It was really funny and a really cool game in my opinion.
I mean, Over the Hedge was a great movie in general, so you can only assume that the game was great. My next game is Alien Isolation. It's another pretty popular game. It's a really good horror game compared to the rest, and you know, based on the already great Alien series, well, you've probably seen it, it's really good. But it's good even aside from the movies. Like, even if it had nothing to do with the Alien series, this game would still be pretty good. It's a really terrifying horror game.
It gets you intense.
It's pretty intense.
Really intense.
You're kind of playing a game of cat and mouse against this alien, and it's like you're trying to hide and outsmart it, and it's basically you're just hiding for the entirety of the game. But it's really intense, it's really fun, it has a great story, and it's really good at building a world that you are absolutely terrified of.
I played the game once, and I will never play it again. Like, literally never play it again. Because I've only escaped them once, and you have like not a time limit, but you have a timer to see how long it takes you to get out of the building. And there are plenty of different ways that it can jump scare you and get you and all that. But overall, it's a really cool game. For my next game, though, we're talking about the Madagascar. And yes, there is an actual Madagascar game, if you don't believe it. But just like Over the Hedge, it was classic. It had very classic levels. Has a different type of puzzle solving for different types of things. You can go through the entire first movie of Madagascar, and you start off with Marty at the zoo when he has his vision to get out. And you can go through certain trials to unlock abilities, and of course, you can play as any of the characters. You have certain mini games like mini golf and all that. And this game was actually like really, really popular back then, around 2007. At the time the movie came out, like, it was one of the best sellers for the PS2. And I remember playing it so much as a kid. Graphics are not that good, but back then we thought they were amazing. So, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of video games based on like movies, like great movies from our childhoods, and
They don't disappoint.
They don't disappoint. My next game is The Walking Dead. I think it's my favorite of the games that I'm going to be talking about today. It's the best Walking Dead spin-off. There's been a lot of TVs and like shows and like different stuff based on The Walking Dead. I don't think any of them are great. I watched a little bit of The Walking Dead. I think it's just okay. But this game is significantly better in my opinion. It's kind of a perfect world for the Telltale game format. If you don't know what that is, there's a game company called Telltale where they make games that are really based on your decisions and how you affect other people, and the story is completely fluid. It depends on how you play it.
Your actions really depend. Your actions shape the story, and it gets very, very emotional. You have to make very important decisions that can lead to death or saving.
And like if you, maybe you have to save one person or another, and maybe you'll be rude to someone or nice to someone, and it'll say they'll remember that for later in the story. But it's really an emotional series, and I think the storyline is better than the show. I think it's a really, really fun game.
For those who do know about the game, name your favorite character down in the comments. Mine was Clementine. Clementine was by far, like, really, really cool, in my opinion. But let's move on. For my next game, I'm going to be talking about X-Men, The Origins of Wolverine. And there were a lot of okay Wolverine games on, like, Steam and, like, Flash. But this was, like, one of the only really good main console games. It came out on the Wii, the PS2, the Xbox, and it was a hack and slash type of game. You go into the world of Logan and go through his whole life evolving into the Wolverine. You even start off when he had like his bone claws when he first like met his brother in the woods and all that, and you fight all the way up to his army days and all that. Like you live through everything, and it's a really fun combat system. The game is easily addicting and fun to play without a doubt. I remember I had it on the Wii, and you would have to like do the actual Wolverine motion to get the claws out, and the combat was amazing and fun to hear, and it was awesome, definitely without a doubt.
My next game is the Friday the 13th game. It's a sort of a newer game. It's really good to play with friends. It's a great horror film franchise to base any game off of. And it has this really cool, like, asymmetrical multiplayer where one person will play as Jason and the rest of the people are camp counselors, and they're trying to go around and figure out some way to either escape or get rid of Jason. And meanwhile, the player who's playing as Jason has to hunt everybody down. And it's cool. It's really fun to play with other people. There's a walkie-talkie system, so like if you find a walkie-talkie, you can talk to the other camp counselors to try and coordinate to get out and kind of form some teams, maybe even betray some people trying to get out. It's genuinely scary. Even though another person is playing it, it's still just as terrifying when they're walking up on you out of the woods.
Because you never know which Jason you're going to deal with. They have like almost every type of Jason. For people who don't know who Savini Jason is, you'll learn who he is during the game. He's very, very scary, without a doubt.
And there's a lot of ways to play. There are a lot of ways to either fight Jason or get out of the park on both sides. There's just a lot of ways to figure out how to win.
And don't be that guy who always wants to be the guy with the gun and try to shoot people. Don't be that guy.
Yep.
But for the next game, there was an actual Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. There's a lot of them. But this arcade combat side-scroller was made in a vast amount of ways, but the most iconic one was the one made in 2007 for the PS2. And you will go through the story of each turtle until you meet up with Master Splinter to go on team missions. You were able to perform team attacks and have really good combat. It was different types of parkour you could do as well. And my favorite turtle out of that game was definitely Raphael, because not only does it remind me of myself, because I am indeed a hothead at times, but you were able to go on any side of the field in any turtle and just help anyone out. And I can go on and on about the game, but we gotta keep it moving.
My next game is South Park: The Stick of Truth. This game is a game, but I think the most, even aside from the actual gameplay, the best part of this game is the humor. Like every part of the game, it's a little bit raunchy, but if you're into like that South Park humor, this game is just full of jokes. Like literally every few seconds, there's some joke or hidden like secret somewhere, and it's actually surprisingly good turn-based gameplay, even aside from the South Park humor-based game. Like everything's just a joke, but the game itself is actually really fun, and it's fairly long and in-depth, and there's a lot of ways to play and a lot of unlockables.
Definitely a different type of RPG if you're into the different types of abilities. If you like fart jokes, you'll enjoy the game a lot. For our next game, we're gonna have to go with Surf's Up. Surf's Up was actually a really cool movie if you didn't know about it, but Surf's Up was a movie when you go into the world and you see a penguin named Cody Maverick, and this game is basically based off his life. And Cody Maverick was a penguin who wanted to have the dream of becoming the greatest surfer of all time. You travel around the world and you go into freestyle sessions and pull off mad and rad tricks to get into the Big Z competition. You end up doing a variety of mini games that can unlock every character from the movie if you play long enough and you play long enough to get the game. I had like most of the games that I'm talking about at the time, and I would say my favorite character was definitely Big Z because it was a generally really fun character. It was really chill, really funny, with the grain. If you know what I just taught, if you know what I just said, you're a god, for real, for real.
And If you enjoyed today's special episode and you want to see more of our picks, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. If there's something we missed, maybe there's a game you love that we didn't talk about, tell us in our GKG Discord server using the link down in the description. You can get it, you can join, you can tell us about music, games we should talk about, really anything, even topics, or even just talk about gaming in general with other Green Knight gamers. We'll see you next time on Green Knight Gaming.
See ya.
Bye-bye.